everyone, I am Brittany, the Cosmic Lunar Soul. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome back to all my subscribers. Today I want to do a really cool topic where I talk about pairing divination. Specifically, I want to talk about pairing other forms of divination with tarot in particular. So I'll be covering Oracle, I'll be covering Lenormand. I have coins, I have Pendulum, and I have Witch's runes, which can be replaced with regular like Elder Futhark runes, but I don't really use them, so I'm just going off of what I use. So if you're interested in talking about how to pair other methods of divination with the tarot, go ahead, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you don't forget at the end of the video. And let's go ahead and get started. Okay, for the sake of this video, I'll be using predominantly my pocket version of the Rider-Waite-Smith Centennial Edition deck. This is kind of the standard generic tarot that everybody sort of envisions when they're first getting into tarot. So I wanted to use something that's fairly default so I can explain a lot of different things, but I will be touching on certain types of pairings that won't revolve around this specific deck. So I will have timestamps as normal. If you're used to my videos, you can hop around or go back and revisit certain sections. But what I was going to do originally is pair up, I was going to break the video up by the different methods of divination paired with the tarot, but I think it actually makes more sense to break it up by the method of pairing, and in that method explain how you can do it differently with the different forms of divination. I think that makes more sense. You will notice that I don't have my bones as part of this video. I kind of touched on it in my bones video, which I'll link below. So if you're curious how to pair tarot with bones, you can go ahead and check that out. It's not very detailed, but I plan to do a more detailed video. So if you do have questions about ideas how to pair tarot with bones, please comment below and let me know what whether you're struggling or if you have your own ideas, stuff like that. So the final thing is, the only thing that I will be showing you specifically that is divination based is the pendulum. So I'll be showing you how used to pair the tarot and pendulum at the very end of the video, because it doesn't really fit in with everything else, at least not the way that I do it. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. So one of the common ways that people like to use tarot in their just day-to-day lives is to do daily readings. Now, daily readings are usually specific to the energy of one's day, and people tend to only pull one or two cards. So what that generally means is that it's a very quick, short, overarching reading. Some people do it in the beginning of the day, some people do it at the end of the day, depending, on how they like to do it. So let me see. I think this deck is actually in order. I have not used this yet, so you guys are seeing it for the first time, but let me give it a quick shuffle. All right, now that that's shuffled, I'll be showing you two examples of how to pair some oracle cards with your dailies. Oracle cards vary wildly. So for this example, I'll just kind of show you some more cards that focus on reflecting on the energy of the day and how you compare it. Okay, let's do a test reading. We'll just pull one card as our daily reflection, and we have the Four of Wands. Now, the Divine Doors has a saying on the cards, and it's just something to reflect on. Sometimes it's something to pass on to others. So we're using this in a way to take this energy combined with this specific saying and something that we can reflect on through the day. And I'll kind of talk about once I pull the cards. It always makes more sense with an example. Alrighty, this one flew out, so we'll go with this door here. And this says, draw down the moon. The forest nymphs dance in sheer delight, singing soft songs, find us in the world, good night. So I feel like this is all about celebration, right? So if you were to only have pulled the Four of Wands, the Four of Wands is about celebrating life, celebrating your connections with your friends and your loved ones and the people around you. It could also represent that there is a specific celebration that is going on, perhaps birthdays, um, weddings, or something of that sort, right? So that would be like, if we're doing this in the beginning of the day, you can think that, okay, there's something that I should take time to celebrate today. But what is it? Now we pull this card and we see that it says draw down the moon. So if we're thinking about the energies that are around us now, at the time of this recording, we're in the energy of the strawberry moon, the full moon for June, and we're also leaving or we have just had the summer solstice pass. So maybe it's telling you to celebrate the moon, celebrate the energies that this moon is bringing to you today, and how can you take time to deliberately do that. So that's how this just sort of just adds on to the energy of this. It gives you a little bit of a focus, and you'll probably see as I go along this video that I'm going to use the word focus a lot. So yeah, so that's one example, and I'm going to move these over. I'll leave this here. This is a stress reduction kind of oracle. You could use it in any kind of way, really. So I'm going to just shuffle these. Let's pull this one. Okay, so this is sensuality and sex. So it has a self-care practice here, and it says that sex is a great way to connect with yourself. It is a beautiful, sensual way to bring yourself into full awareness of yourself. So this could be celebrating your own self physically. And then if you can even mix and match, like we just pulled 3 different cards here, right? So maybe this is saying this is your way to celebrate the new moon, celebrate yourself under the energies of this moon, not new moon, I'm sorry, full moon rather. And you can do that using sex magic, or, if you're not into magic, just sexually. So that's kind of an idea of how to do a really quick way to give a little bit more to your tarot, especially if you're struggling, if you're a little new and you're trying to think of like ideas of how to apply these things and you want it to be more actionable, then you can do that. It kind of gives you something more tangible to touch on. Okay, so next, what I want to show you for a daily reading would be with witches runes. Witches runes are going to be kind of like using oracle, but I think that it's a little more fun in the sense, like, let's pull another card. Okay, so we have the Ten of Wands. And if we're pulling this in the beginning of the day, we might think, okay, so we might have a bit of a long day, but we're going to get stuff done. But, what is going to be the focus of this energy? And then we're pulling a lot of, like, moon stuff, which is really funny. So this is the moon rune, and this moon rune specifically covers like adaptability and change. It can have something to do with like the ancestral, dream work, emotions and feelings, introspection, intuition, that kind of thing. Also dealing with shadow work and memory and mystery, right? So remember, these are readings for yourself. So in my case, a long day, getting stuff done, but what kind of stuff is going along with that? What am I accomplishing? It could be saying that you've accomplished a lot of work with your ancestors, if you're into ancestor veneration, especially if you're doing this as a reflection of the day. But looking at the moon, and with the concept of tens being the end of a cycle, it could just be the struggles of having to deal with these changes that are going on around you. And today might also bring a little bit more of that But the idea is like while you're dealing with the emotions from the changes and you having to adapt to them today, you can kind of rest assured that at least you will have accomplished something with this of wands. So as you go throughout your day, you now know you have that focus that today is definitely going to be bringing about a lot of changes, the end of the cycle, and you can start to see how they flow together. Um, and again, I'm showing you witches runes, but you can substitute this for Elder Futhark or whatever other runes that you like to use. So I use this example of like your daily reading, but obviously you can use it in terms of like your weekly reading, your monthly reading. If you're learning and you're trying to figure out general readings or whatever, it can help with that. So I think that's what I want to move on to next. Let's talk about how we can use other methods of divination to suss out a little bit more from a general reading. I feel like when people are new to tarot, they do a lot of general readings, but I think that's really, really hard, honestly. You don't have a subject focus. You have nothing to really focus on. So what I like to do for general readings is to pull out an oracle deck. So in this example, I'll be using the Signs of the Times Oracle. It's just sort of a generic oracle deck. It doesn't have much of a theme to it, like some of the other ones that you have already seen or will see going forward. So what I do is before I pull any tarot, I will shuffle the cards and just pull one card. Whoops. However you like to pull your cards, that's how you do it, okay? So we have our first card. So this card is the card of obstacles, and you can kind of see here already, you see like a path that you're going down. You see the mountains ahead of you that kind of form like what looked like a natural roadblock. So that would be the theme of this general reading. Now let's pull some cards. I'm going to go with like a traditional 3 card. Most people tend to pull 3 to 4. It's kind of like the standard that I've seen. So I'm going to go with my standard, which is 3. And this, again, guys, it's just a sample reading. So don't, just understand that it's coming from that perspective. All right. So we have our 3 cards. All right. So we have our obstacles, right? So we're having some challenges. This is just a general reading. People generally do general readings from my experience when they want to check in, but they don't necessarily know how to verbalize what they want to check in on. And if you're reading for others, usually that means something's going on, but they don't know how to suss out what it is. And if you're reading for yourself, usually you're living it, right? You know what's going on, but you don't know how to process it for yourself. So right now we already have the idea that we know that we have some obstacle that we need to overcome. We have the tarot, we have the Tower, the 3 of Swords, and the Hierophant. So this feels very much, I'm going to leave it upright. It can be both in this regard, but so it looks like we're struggling with some changes, right? And there was a sudden change in our life that we did not handle. And I'm using we because you guys are involved in this reading with me. We're doing this test together. So we have had an event that really just changed things for us, and we were not ready for it. And it is weighing on us very much so emotionally. So we kind of already know that there's an obstacle, and now we're starting to hone in, right? If we didn't have this card, we would have said, okay, we have this event that's going on, and we have this event that is weighing on us, and perhaps we need to talk to people about it, but why, right? And they're like, okay, but I'm fine. I know this happened. I know that it's weighing on me, but what about it? And you can see that it's causing an obstacle. And most likely, if we're looking at this visually and intuitively as you get more comfortable, you realize like perhaps this is blocking my path forward and I don't realize it. And what ends up happening when you're doing general readings, and what I've found is like now we know that usually in this part of the reading, you know what the event is. If you're reading for someone else, you can ask them what happened. And then you can go into, and this is just, again, a test reading. Well, how do we overcome this obstacle, right? And we could just do another 3 cards, or you can pull one, however you like to do it. This is, just that part is up to you. If you would like for me to talk about stuff like that, like how I decide how many cards to pull and when to pull more, I can do that in another video. Just comment below and let me know. So we had this event happen. I'm going to use myself as an example. I recently moved, but I didn't necessarily want to. The owners of my previous townhome decided to move back, and I kind of only had like barely over the legal minimum to find a new place, but the rental market is insane out here, so it made it really hard. I wasn't able to find a place I love, so I've just been a little like upset about it and kind of harping over it. And my person that I've been talking to have been my mom and my friends. Okay, like, so I already know this is going on, but what about it? Okay, well, it's keeping me from moving forward. Moving forward from what? What can I do to overcome it? And a lot of we have the Ace of Pentacles, we have the High Priestess, and we have the Queen of Wands. Now, for me, this is going to be very specific to me. I see myself in the High Priestess and the Queen of Wands. And then I am a Taurus, so I feel like this is very much like my energy that I'm projecting into this reading right now, because I have no subject to read on. But what I feel like this means is we need to work on finding that stability that we feel like we've lost due to this sudden change. And we can kind of start to see this mirror. But again, that exceeds the discussion of this, right? So we have our obstacle. Our obstacle is that we don't feel very rooted right now. I think that's pretty common when you move. So your goal, my goal, is to feel like I can put down some roots, feel a little more stable and comfortable in the place that I am living. And here we have 2 different things that are going on. With the High Priestess, oftentimes I feel like when you're forced into these sort of turbulent situations, you lose connection with yourself. If you're not in the spiritual world, this could be more so losing insight into your own self. If you are in the spiritual world, it could be more so losing your practice, your comfortability, your stability within your own spiritual or magical practice. And the goal is to reclaim that. And you can do that by embracing the energy of the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands, along with the King of Wands, they're the visionaries of the courts in the suit of Wands. Find the passion and love and comfortability in your domain. And the Queen, she's very intuitive, so she's figuring out what it is that she needs. How can she nurture that and grow it and become more confident in where she is? And I think that's where all of this comes into play. But if we take these away, right, and we look at that, it's a lot less clear, perhaps, than when we pull in the Oracle. So that is an example of how to take a general reading and expand upon it. So next I want to do an example with general readings using the coins. The coins and the runes can kind of be used in similar ways. It's just a coin is two-faced, so you have a few more options. If you ever want me to do a video on the methods that or like the technique of using coins, please let me know. It'd probably be like a short, a YouTube short or a reel or something. So let's pull 3 more cards, just another general reading for us, guys. And I will show you some ideas for using the coins. all of these ideas, almost all of them, except for Pendulum, which is why I'm saving that to the end, can be mix and match. So the technique that I just used for the Oracle card can also be used for the coin, or it can be used for the Witch's runes or whatever runes you have. So just understand, I'm not going to go through each step all for every single method of divination. Otherwise, we will be here until the aliens arrive. So here we have our general reading, right? So before I pull the coins, we have the Fool, the Queen of Wands, and the Chariot. So it looks like, again, I told you the Queen of Wands represents me. I feel like we're going to see a lot of that because I'm just doing generic stuff right now. But it seems like we need to take a fresh step into something new. It feels like we're not connecting with our Queen of Wands energy. We're not being the visionaries or leaders that we are known that we can be, and we're having difficulty moving forward. So if I look at this, these feel like they are probably reversed, which is forcing this this Fool to pop up. So it feels like we kind of aren't really moving forward. We're probably not in the best like state emotionally, in terms of like the Queen of Wands in the reverse can be a little hot-headed, kind of like the Knight, except more so emotionally manipulative in a way. I don't want to use manipulative, it's such a harsh word, but the queens represent water, so there's still a lot of that emotional energy that flows through the queen. So we have a guest. So sorry if like my hands are all over the place or I shuffle stupid. So I know when to flip things in reverse just based off of practice and intuition. But if you're new, right, and you're kind of looking at this and it kind of feels all over the place, or if you're doing a reading for someone who might be a little harder to read for, you can pull some coins. So what I like to do with the coins is you can either pull one to mimic like the example I gave previously with the Oracle card, or we can pull one for each card. Now these coins are unique. They are, I will have to look up the meanings because I haven't used my coins in a long time, but they're not a standard method of divination. So one second and I will show you what I mean. Okay, so you guys obviously won't be able to read this, but you kind of see what I'm looking at when I do this, just for transparency and because the coins are really cool. So I have coins here. These are my coins I have here. Okay, bye Luna. I have here the scythe, I have the Ouroboros, and then I have the eye. So the scythe is here. So the scythe is endings that are swift and unexpected. And if it's funny because it kind of mirrors the overall general reading we had before, right? You start to see patterns in tarot or in divination in general, and we're starting to see examples of that here going forward, which is really, really cool. I think that's another lesson in divination that we don't really talk about. It's just the patterns of it. But anyway, that's a different video. Comment below if you'd like me to go through that. So the scythe is usually one of negativity. It predicts accidents in general and not just ones associated with death. Just, it could be small or it can be sinister. So that's the scythe paired with the Fool. And then we have Ouroboros, which is the symbol of cycles, life, death, and immortality. Being a snake, they are grounded creatures and therefore make a wonderful contrast to this soaring crow it represents on the back. So we have the crow in the back, just as an introduction to my coins. It represents the rings of life and fate and connect us all. And then we have the eye, which is the symbol of intellect, both divine and mundane. It represents clairvoyance, omniscience, logic, awareness, vigilance, enlightenment via reason, and protection. So we see here, like, okay, we have our scythe, which can be sudden changes, kind of like the tarot, but it's a little more ominous. Tower, but it's a little more ominous than the tower. So I feel like we're in this position where we need to start something fresh, but it's not without its warnings that, you know, perhaps don't just take a blind leap of faith. This is saying you really need to start fresh, but you have to do it within reason, and that kind of comes in later in the reading with the eye. So be careful not to just leap off the cliff. Make sure you have your climbing gear, that kind of thing, using like literal puns, or not puns, but literal examples. And then we have our Queen of Wands, who I mentioned before, in reverse, kind of has this like really, and this is where you start to see like things maybe being flipped over. Ugh, slippery. So this need for groundedness, and the Queen of Wands in reverse, she can become very emotionally all over the place, and the idea is to find that center again, to recenter oneself in order to reconnect with being that queen. But I think that understanding that the Ouroboros is a cycle, just understand that it's okay that you have kind of fallen into this emotional state where you aren't finding the inspiration that you might have previously, because everybody has their ups and downs. It gives very much like Wheel of Fortune kind of vibes. So don't think that just because you're in this state that you need to be so hard on yourself. And it reflects on the fact that, again, if we go back to the scythe, you don't have to just rush through and jump into something new. It's just almost like it's just more like a, hey, you might want to start thinking about how you can change things and do something fresh for yourself. And then we have the eye. So I mentioned before that this felt very reversed, right? Goodness. So switch that up. In reverse, you kind of have the Chariot has like a little bit of roadblock. You have trouble getting started, right? So you're in this sort of emotional state, really finding it difficult to get started on anything new. And then we have our eye here, which, again, going back to this is understanding that sometimes you need a break, but you need to tap into that intelligence and trust your intuition that you know when to move forward for yourself. And a lot of times when I see things that are intuitive in tarot and I'm talking to someone who may not be in the spiritual world, I generally would tell them, like, this is their sign to move forward. And even people who are more so spiritual, because sometimes you just kind of get lost in the cycle of whatever you're in, and you lose sight of the finish line or the way out. And I think that seeing this eye is like, okay, this is your official wake-up call, or this is your official sign, or however you like to talk about synchronicities. So this is an idea of how to use coins to better expand upon general readings and to bring a little more, again, I'm using the word focus, into your readings. I feel like I should turn this into a drinking game. Every time I say focus, you guys should take a sip, but I don't want to be responsible for you. Okay, so we talked about general readings. Let's talk about spreads. And I'll give an example using my I sell a 6-month ahead spread that is like a regular classic, pull 6 tarot cards for the month ahead, and then I have like a deluxe one. that includes oracle and includes runes, witches runes. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you can use oracle cards for spreads, right? So we'll just pull 6 cards. Okay, so we have 6 cards. This, let me kind of stack them a little tighter so you can see everything. There's a few things that you can do, right? So I'm going to pull another oracle card from the Signs of Our Times. So let's just pull one. And it's going to mimic the exact thing that I did for our daily and the example I gave for the general reading. And this is going to provide a focus. But the difference is with the general reading, it helps you focus on what the theme of the general reading was. This is going to be a focus for the next few months, or 6 months specifically. So over the next 6 months, you're going to have the theme of love. It doesn't necessarily mean relationships. It doesn't necessarily mean with your specific partner or a crush or anything like that. It's just love. It could be self-love. It could be your partner. It could be someone new. It could be your love of work. It could be a new hobby. It could be a lot of different things. So let's go into it with that aspect. So we look at, oh, this is a unique card. I'm actually going to pull this out and swap it for something new. This is a specific card to the Centennial deck. So let me pull a card for July. That represents July. It's the same card. I'm going to just leave this. Okay. Card for July. All right. So we have some transformations that are going on for the month of July surrounding love. So what I would probably say for this, with a very simple reading, is that it's probably to do with our relationship with love. So if prior in the first half of the year, if it was either non-existent or it was a little toxic, it would probably be changing in some way. Changes don't necessarily mean that it has to be good. And another way to expand upon that is to, without having to pull more tarot cards, you can have, you can pull some runes, or you can pull coins. Let's pull a rune out for that. Okay, so this is going to help hone down more of what we think July is going to be. So for July, we have, I'll put it here. We have the Scythe. And it's really funny because death and the scythe kind of match up, right? So if we're talking about in regards to love, I feel like this is the end of a cycle. You're finding closure. The scythe really means like cutting things off. Magically, it could be a sign that you might find July is a good month to do a cord cutting for whatever that is that you're wanting to put behind you. Or it could just mean that you're officially shutting the door to that chapter of something romantic that no longer serves you. So let's see what August looks like. August, now we have the Seven of Pentacles. I'm gonna put this away just in case we decide to pull more. We'll just pull one at a time and then put it away, and they'll be used as like they're clarifiers basically. So we have the Seven of Pentacles. There's going to be a lot of hard work that you're doing in August. And I think that this is going to be more so surrounded with self-care and self-love. Because if you're leaving this cycle, you're closing a door on something that wasn't working for you. Now you're putting work into yourself. So you're finding time for yourself, finding that reconnection that you might have lost due to, like, for example, say it was a toxic relationship. In September, we have plans for something new. So we have the Two of Wands. Looking ahead, this is where maybe you start to understand, right? We've rediscovered ourselves in August, found some true, not true love, self love. And now here we're starting to re examine our relationship with what we think love should look like for ourselves. Um, oh, I didn't pull a clarifier for this, but I didn't really need to. It felt obvious, but we can see. Let's pull a rune for this. So this is the crossroad. Um, this is where we make the conscious decision to do this, which again, it felt obvious, so that's why I didn't really need to pull that. The crossroad is another rune of like changes. This is where you're starting to set boundaries. This is where you make these conscious decisions on what direction that you want to go. And then here, this is where you start to plan out that direction. So let's see what rune we have for that. We have, I believe that is the harvest. I've not done my witches runes in a while, so let me double check. Yeah, this is the harvest. So makes a lot of sense kind of with what I said before, right? This Two of Wands, this is where we're planning things out. It's like we've discovered ourselves, we've come up with a lot of information, and now we're harvesting that information in September and using it to actually come forth with a plan on how to move forward with ourselves and how we want things to move forward romantically for ourselves. So we had September, here's October. October looks like it is going to be maybe a slip into old cycles. And maybe that's why this was here. Maybe you got out of some codependent situation, but you fell into it again, which is not unusual to slip into old tendencies. It's very hard to get out of. Here we have the rings. So maybe you've made a commitment with the wrong person. You kind of fell into the, back into being codependent. And one of the things that I will say about the path forwards, these things like are these 6 months ahead, year ahead kind of thing. It's like a blueprint, but it's not set in stone. So you have control over the situation. So what I usually would say at this point is, okay, how can I better solidify my plan so I don't fall into bad habits? That's really what I would suggest here based off of what I'm seeing. All right, so November has for us the Page of Cups. So it seems like maybe you were slipping into bad habits, making commitments, but perhaps you got out of that and you found the Page of Cups, who is more youthful, but or this could even represent ourselves, where we are the Page of Cups, we have the ring again, we're making our commitment to ourselves instead of into our toxic cycle that we were in before. And it's just kind of reflecting what we see here. I like how this turned out, but the page is learning about themselves and their connection with themselves emotionally, and starting to pages to me exude earth energy. So they're starting to find that rootedness that we're mirroring here in the Seven of Pentacles. So I'm going to put this back and then look at December, and we have the Queen of Cups. So this whole cycle looks like a journey in discovering our Queen of Cups selves. So this is where we have not only mastered self-love, we've also mastered how we give that love to people, so that way we're not overgiving and we're not letting people leech off of us. So here we have the Star. Yes, we have the Star. This is like believing in something good. This is hopeful, inspiration, motivation. So this is like your motivation to get here. And you can kind of see how as we go about these, especially when you're doing these really large spreads, it's really difficult. Like if I were to try to do, I'm just going to pull 3 cards from the bottom of the deck, right? If I'm trying to do 3 cards for each one, you can see how unwieldy it would get very quickly. Like if each card had 3 cards, can you imagine trying to read all of that? It's overwhelming for one, and there's easier ways to get a clear and concise answer that I personally like doing it better with this. It feels cleaner, it feels easier. I think it's easier for everybody, honestly. So if you're reading for other people, it's easier for them to digest, and it's also easier for you to digest and talk through as a reader. And it gives you like a variety of things to bounce your intuition off of other than just tarot. So one of the things I haven't pulled out is Lenormand. Lenormand's a little particular. I thought about doing it separate, similar to the Pendulum, but you can use Oracle in this, or Lenormand, similar to how you would use Oracle, but the difference is Lenormand is a very straightforward method of divination. In my opinion, it's probably one of the least intuitive. So pairing it with tarot, when people tend to be very intuitive, or even Oracle, which is even more intuitive, tends to not match up. But you can do it. So what I like to do, Lenormand likes to use like odd numbers. So, and I like to use odd numbers. So if we go back to our 3-card reading, and sorry, I should have done this with the general, but I forgot. I guess Editor Brittany can go back and switch it around. I'll do that. So here we have 3 cards, right, just for a general reading. And again, remember, general readings can be really, really hard to pinpoint. We can pull Lenormand cards for a focus. And the thing that I like is, and I'm still very new to Lenormand, so I'm still, I don't have the cards devoted to memory, but I do have at least like an understanding of it at a base level. So we have here, and I like this. I picked these because they look alike, and we'll talk about that in the next section, or after the next section, rather. So we have these cards, right? The Lenormand tells a story, and it's based off of each card, and it's usually short and concise. So here we have the Ace of Wands, we have the Nine of Wands, and we have the Fool. So these kind of mirror each other in terms of starting something new, specifically the Ace of Wands, starting something new that you're passionate about. So it could be like a new hobby, or it could even be a new job, but I think it's going to take a lot of time, and it's something that probably takes a lot of your energy, so it's leaning more towards a new job. So, but with the Fool, this might be a sign of a career change. Now here we have the Crossroads, we have the dog, and we have the bear. So the Crossroads is probably like having to make a decision. It's pretty common trope for Crossroads. All right, so the Crossroads is having to make a choice, kind of going back and forth, and ultimately having to make a decision. The dog is about acceptance, companion, and loyalty. So basically, you need to make a decision, but you need to be loyal to that decision that you made. And then the bear is finances, management, salary. So you need to make a decision about whether you're going to be loyal to your job, maybe, is what this is saying, right? So now you know that, like, if we were looking at this, And we're like, okay, what is this? Is this about starting a new hobby? Is this about finding a job? Should you do it? What is it? And then down here you see like, okay, so clearly this is about whether I'm struggling because I'm waffling on whether I should be loyal to my job or not. But when you look up here, it kind of goes back and forth, which is what I really like about Lenormand, is that this is very straightforward. You kind of know what you want, right? And this is, remember, this is a general reading, so I'm reading it in response to that idea, where we say, like, right now, generally what we're focused on is a decision on being loyal to our job. And then diving in deeper to the tarot, we have the energy around us is that we have something new on the horizon that we should probably focus on. We have a new passion, and maybe where we're at right now is more so we're surviving than we are enjoying it, and suggest that instead you should do something new. Um, and what I like, and let me zoom in. We have a lot of reflections of things here. We have the mountains here, and you can see the mountains in this card. So you see that you need to make a decision about whether you are going to do this new thing, or, and well, not or, but then, and we go on, like, should you remain loyal to a job that is basically you're just feeling like you're going through the motions and it's wearing you down. And then here, does this mean that we need to financially find something new? So there's a lot of ways to look at this, and we see that similar mirroring method that I mentioned with the coins, but because of the way that Lenormand works across, it's a little different. So yeah, I just wanted to show you how Lenormand fit into all this. The last topic I want to talk about, I already talked about daily pulls, which can be used as daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. I talked about general readings, and then I gave an example of how you can use other methods of divination with tarot in spread form, like in larger spreads. Now I want to talk about shadow work. Shadow work is a little bit more of an open-ended topic, but I want to show how you can use shadow work oracle decks to go along with the tarot, and it just, again, gives it some more, I'm going to say it with me, guys, focus to your readings. So again, I'm going to start off with, so say I'm going to just use a common, like, shadow work trope, right? Like, a lot of common things is maybe it's confidence in oneself, right? So what steps do I need to take to embrace my self-confidence, or something like that? Let's go with that. Now, because you guys are pros and you have already seen some examples, I'm sure you can already tell me what is one method that I can do to go along with this. Now I'm going to give you a second because I'm going to grab my deck. I'll be using the Earth, Moon, and Shadow Oracle, and this is by Serafina. This is the limited edition. It has a different cardstock, which I just love this deck so much. Now, if you set it correctly, yes, you can pull one card as the focus. So let's do that. Let's just pull one card as the focus. And we have here, this is Winter's Bone. This card is Reflection, Transformation, and Rebirth. So again, to remind everybody, our question was about the steps that we can take for embracing our inner confidence, self-confidence. I don't know how, I already forgot what I said. And our focus card is saying that we need to reflect, we need to transform, and we need to rebirth ourselves. But the question is, how do we do that? And now we have our focus. We can see what are the actions around those steps. So if we're going to reflect and transform and rebirth, we need to make sure we have the 5 of Pentacles, we have death, and we have the 8 of Swords. So we need to make sure that we are asking for help when we need it. But actually, I'm going to start in the middle here. We have our transformation, which mirrors our oracle card. So we need to transform the way that we're currently doing things. So if you're already in this shadow work journey, maybe switch it up. This card could be a sign that you have closed part of that cycle, but now we need to switch up and do something a little different going forward. And part of that could be these two things. So one part is making sure that we are accepting help when we need it, as I mentioned before. And then the other part is to limit self-limiting thoughts. And this can be self-deprivation. It can be just not trying, just assuming that because you think that you'll fail, there's no point in trying, that kind of thing. So that's kind of how you can, that's one method you can do that, right? And if you guys have been watching, what is the other method um, of using the oracle with this? And if you said mirroring it with 3 cards, you would be correct. So we're asking for steps that we can take, right? We kind of already know that we have our transformation. I mentioned asking for help, finding stability. I didn't mention that earlier, but finding stability, asking for help when needed, if you struggle with that, and then also limiting, stop self-deprivation, stop with the self-limiting thoughts, that kind of thing. So in regards to asking for help, there is this concept of like awakening. I feel like a lot of people don't realize they can ask for help. And this card is suggesting that maybe you didn't realize that you could do that. There's like an epiphany that goes along with that if you do allow yourself to ask for help. You might realize how much support you have around you, or you realize that maybe you haven't been doing things the right way for yourself. A lot of times with this, to me, it suggests like finding a mentor or a counselor or a therapist, something like that. And then mirroring the death card, we have the sacred law, which is rituals, boundaries, and practice. So this could be saying transform your shadow work practice. I think I mentioned that before. So maybe this is more confirmation based off of what I said, but you guys get the idea where I'm getting at. So transform how you're doing your shadow work rituals, how you set your practice, set your boundaries, all of that. It's a signal that it's time to reformat that and transition into something new in that regards. And then here we have mischief and mayhem, freedom, surrender, and abandon. So in regards to the self-limiting thoughts. So how can I like this, because let me pull this up so you guys can see it. This is dancing around a bonfire. A lot of times the bonfires, like, I think of them as like releasing rituals. So how can you find freedom from those self-limiting thoughts? And in this, I would probably suggest do a releasing ritual. Write down all of the horrible thoughts that you have and tear them up and throw them into the bonfire, or tear them up and let the wind take them, or, use biodegradable stuff, of course. Let them float down a stream away from you, flush them down a toilet, whatever your releasing ritual looks like. It's different for everybody. Or it's different for you every single time you do it. You never know. So yeah, this feels very much like a spiritual awakening in that sense, in regard to your journey of self-confidence. So I would say that this ties very much to your self-confidence, and your growth in that ties very much into your journey, either with witchcraft or spiritually, or however you like to look at it. So that is how I would use this as a shadow work example. Okay, so I would be doing a disservice if I didn't talk about the concept of pairing decks. The decks technically, or pairing tarot and any other deck form of divination, whether it be Oracle or Lenormand or something. Every example I've shown so far, except for like the shadow work one, has had similarities, right? The Lenormand matched the tarot. The Oracle card that I had was kind of vibrant, similar to the tarot. I would be doing you a disservice to explain that it doesn't have to be that way. It could be literally any Oracle deck, any tarot deck, any Lenormand deck. It doesn't matter. But what I will say too, that some creators do create accompanying Oracle decks to go with their tarot deck. And this, I'll be using the example from the Everyday Witch Tarot and Oracle, where the creator, Deborah Blake, created a tarot and a sister deck that is Oracle. And they go together both in terms of aesthetic and then also the art. Well, I guess it's all aesthetic, but you get my drift. They pair together purposefully. These don't change how you can use a deck, but I will say that sometimes creators will have explicit like examples on how to pair them. I don't think this one does necessarily. Yeah, so this one doesn't, but what tends to happen when decks are created to so this was one example. We have the Everyday Witch Tarot example. Here is another example. We have the Prisma Visions Tarot and the Cosma Visions Oracle by James R. Eads. And these are the pocket editions just because of space. It's easier to just pull them out. But you can see that aesthetically they go together, even at the backs of the cards. You can see this. And then you can see the art in the front goes together. Like it meshes really well. So you might be wondering like, okay, Britt, if I can use any deck and any Oracle, why are you showing me this? Well, I just want you guys to know that this is a thing, but I want to make sure that you realize that you don't have to stick by this thing. What are the pros and cons? Well, the cons are generally that there aren't many, in my opinion, but I will say when it comes to indie decks, it can be expensive to try to get the set if you want both. These are mass market, these are indie, so these are a little more expensive individually and together, and these were much more affordable. So you do have options. But what I will say is, if you like to read a little more intuitively and more kind of like free flow instead of looking like at the guidebook or something, you can start to see a lot more similarities between the cards because it's by the same artist. Like in this example, we have, even though we have earth here and we have water here, we have these characters all looking up at the sky, for example. So you start to have more intentional connections between the cards at the very base level from the artist. So, and also when they visually look the same, it's easier to draw connections and parallels between them, even if they're very different. Like here we have the Eight of Wands, here we have the Nine of Birds. This looks more like a springtime scene, this is like a winter scene, but you see like the same sort of elements across from them a bit. So I just wanted to point that out in that regard. I feel like I would have been doing you guys a disservice if I didn't. I like both. I like the joy of finding and pairing cards together, similar to what you saw with my Centennial deck, my Centennial Tarot deck, and the Lenormand deck. It's fun to find pairings. I think it's part of my enjoyment of tarot and divination. But some people don't like the hassle of trying to do that. So then you have this, where they are together. They the job's already done for you, and you have the option of something a little more expensive if that's your jam, or something a little more affordable if that's more up your alley. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. All right, so we're going to get into the pendulum and the tarot. I openly admit I don't really use the pendulum anymore. I don't feel like it was, I don't think we really mesh as like a couple. um, and instead I like to use my yes no coin. So I'll kind of pull this in as a surprise example, but we'll kind of talk about it in a second. So the pendulum can be used in a variety of different ways. So say you want to do 3 cards, right? And we're just going to do this in an unusual way. We're going to almost deal them out. So we have 3 cards. And you might be getting what I'm playing at here. And say you have a current and you want to decide which pile to use for them. And some people, this is a good workaround to letting the current deal out the cards if you're uncomfortable with other people touching your deck. But say you're a little more comfortable with people touching, like you have a specific pendulum that people use. So you can have your current go over and, you know, put the pendulum over each deck. And if you have a pendulum, you know, you already have your yes no understanding of it, right? You can see which one to use, and then you can decide which one to use for them. So this one swung forward, so we would use this one. And then you would pull or go ahead and dish out your cards and then talk about them. Whatever the question is, there was no question. I just wanted to use as an example. So now say you're doing, if you're kind of like me, I like to use like what I call unstructured spreads, which basically are pulling numbers of cards without a position or meaning for each position rather. So say we're going through, we've done a little bit of reading, right? I generally pull 3 cards and then we talk about it. I'll pull another 3. And then what we can do is sometimes things don't become clear, and say I don't necessarily want to pull an actual oracle card for this. I can ask, you know, which card do I need to dive deeper into, and then say this is where we left off this row, right? We can look at this. Maybe not so much. And then we can move over here. Just, you can see this is the moon card. Not so much. So then here we have temperance. Do we want to look at this? So this row, maybe it's not as important, which means that maybe there's something I left behind in the previous row. Now, again, I don't do this very often, but I do want it to, I wanted to give you guys options of like how to expand your practice, okay? So now we can look at the devil. Do we need to look at this more? Okay, so this one's swinging, yes. And now let's look at this. This is the random card that I put back in the deck. I'm going to give it a meaning one day. Do we need to look at this more? Okay, we're getting a no. And then we have the 6 of Wands. Do we need to look at this more? Okay. So that means I need to, what I would normally do is pull these aside, right? We kind of have this. And then pull this out, and then we need to expand on it. There's something I missed or something that these cards are not elaborating on, and then we can go in and we can start to dive deeper. Again, this is where we can pull more tarot. It depends what kind of, like, you know, reading you're doing and how much time you have, or this could have been assigned to pull an oracle card about it. This is where it starts to get into personal preference. But this just kind of gives you an example of how you can use the pendulum along with your cards. I'll give you one last example and then we're going to wrap it up. So let's see if I can do this. All right. Some people like to fan out the cards, right? And again, I don't have anything in particular, like any question, but we can kind of pull the pendulum over zones and see if there's something that we need to pull out. I don't like this method as much because, as you can see, there's a lot more movement in terms of your hand, and like this section is clear now, it seems like. Like maybe we come back here, but this one seems like very much a yes. So you can section off those cards and see what they are. Again, I don't like this method as much. I feel a little more out of control with how many cards I'm pulling and stuff like that, but it might make the curate feel like they have more control, so it depends. I just wanted to give you an example. So another method we can use, if we're, I mentioned I'm not quite as comfortable with the pendulum as I am with other things. So let's say we want to see which pile to go with. So let's start with 1. That's a no. Pile 2. That's also a no. So yes. So that means we would go with the 3rd pile. We can put these cards away and we can put these out. Now, I'm very comfortable with my coin. If all 3 were no, it just means that this is not the method of pulling cards that would have worked for me. Because again, I don't do this very often, but thankfully my coin is like, okay, we're doing a video. We'll go with it. But yeah, I just wanted to give you that option to just show you that there's a variety of ways that you can use your tarot, along with other divination methods that I feel like help enrich your readings or help break you out of, like, if you feel like you're a little stagnant or maybe that you have been falling into like a boring kind of rhythm, I think it'll help you break free of that, and it makes it a little more interesting to do your readings. Okay guys, that was my video. Comment below, what method do you like to use? Did I miss something in this video that you think I should have touched on? And if you want to see how I use tarot with my bones specifically, comment below and let me know. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a like, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!